Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good evening. It's 10 o'clock p.m. here in Calgary, Alberta, Saturday night, September 28th, and I'm glad to be here. Got a bit of a cold and just a bit of a chest cold and stuff, and had to cancel my show last weekend, pretty much for the same reason. So sorry about that for anybody who was ready to tune in. I just thought I'd bump the show from this morning to tonight. It's a little bit easier for me to do the night shows than it is the morning shows. And but I appreciate everybody's tuning in. Thanks very much. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another Restoration, and really just a show I wanted to do after a friend had mentioned that it would probably be helpful, hopefully be helpful, for other people, other survivors of abuse, to sort of have a walkthrough of how my healing journey sort of came about, and the process, the actual process of going through it. And I've done like over 1,000 shows, just mainly talking about child abuse and my own story. And One Child Abuse Survivor to Another was the actual my healing journey, really, on this Blog Talk Radio here over a course of about 3 years, and 2.5 years anyway. And it was a long process, and I was able to do it on my own. I didn't need anybody around. I didn't consult any therapists or counselors or anything like that. I felt safe to do it on my own, and felt quite capable of dealing with the emotional stuff that goes along with it, and I came through it quite well. But not everybody can do that, and I know even on my shows, my previous shows, going back 2011, 10, 2009, I had mentioned almost on every show that not everybody is able to do this kind of work on their own, and sometimes people need to, and you have to be the judge of that yourself, whether or not you're safe enough to do this work on your own, because not everybody can. It's hard work, and it's hard facing these things, and it's hard looking at this stuff. And as a survivor myself, I know how hard it is and how difficult it is. And I've known people that were not able to do this on their own and had to go into, traditional, real therapy and real counselor sessions to work through stuff like this to make sure that they were safe enough to do it. So I would never suggest anybody do any healing work on their own without consulting somebody, if you're not absolutely 100% sure, that yourself, that you're safe, and you'll be able to do the work on your own. I knew that if I did the work on my own, I wasn't going to hurt myself, and I wasn't going to dive off into some depression or something. Excuse me. That's what I mean. That's why I've been off for a couple of weeks. It's been absolutely horrible. And caught some sort of a terrible bug, and it's just hanging on and dragging on. And it's tough work dealing with this stuff, and I know it was hard doing it. It was hard doing the work, but I was able to focus on it and still go to work and still maintain my life, my personal life as well as my work life. And so, I'm fortunate in that area, I guess, because I didn't have any trouble doing it. And it did take me a while to go through the work and through the material. And after I'd go through the material, I generally had to go to work. If I did the show in the morning, which I mostly did, most of those shows in the morning, which was kind of good because I would take my focus off of myself and off of my situation and off of my own pain and past. And I'd have to get busy, and I'd have to work and do a good job at work, and then come home and do my personal life with my husband, and then maybe later in the evening do a little bit more looking into it. So it was a good balance. I didn't spend all day in it, and it didn't really affect me throughout the day. So that's the thing. I was pretty fortunate to not have any problems doing the work. But I would say, never ever do any of this stuff unless you're absolutely sure that, any healing work that you can do this on your own. You make sure you get help if you need help, because it's hard. It's hard doing it. That's for sure. We looked at, I was just looking at some of the stuff that I've used in my own healing journey and that I found very helpful, and used and talked about a lot on my shows. One child abuse survivor to another, 2010, especially 2011, and I didn't label those shows individually, and I probably should go back and do it. I've done over 1,000 shows, and it would take me probably, a good 6 months to go back and relabel those shows and put what the actual subject topic was. I did some of them. I did do some, but I didn't do them all, and because I was having a hard time keeping up with my shows at that time. I was working, as always, I'm working full time, and right now I'm not working full time, but for the most part, always working full time and still doing all this other stuff on the outside of work. And so I had really very little time to put these blurbs into the show, the content, right? So I would just do a generalized content on one child abuse survivor to another, or child abuse prevention is up to us, or things like that. And then just people just follow along. I have had almost 50,000 listens. I haven't got there yet. I'm at 49,700 listens. So I really appreciate all of you people. I really do over the years. I've said it, before, but I don't know how serious people take me. I am extremely grateful and thankful for everybody who's taken the time to listen to my shows over the years, and just to know that people are listening. That's really something. I had no idea how long I'd be doing these shows when I first started out in 2009. I had no idea how long I'd be even doing them, or how long I would maintain the shows, but people were listening, and I thought, hey, if somebody's listening, and hopefully somebody's getting something out of this. And I know there were some psychologists and psychotherapists and stuff who were listening to my shows, and just different people, other survivors, other friends of mine. So I really appreciate everybody who's taken the time to spend part of your life on this journey with me, through my healing journey, and talking about the issues of child abuse, which are very important to me, obviously. And so thank you very much. I really appreciate it. So on those shows, I had done a lot of the work, of the anger work, and looked at, my whole entire past. I had talked about this a few weeks ago, that it was good to take a look at the big picture, not just looking at it from my eyes at certain few episodes or events that happened that were crucial in destruction of my being, I should say. I actually stepped back and thought about, what happened, and especially when I started writing the book, which was a blog, really, first of all, started writing the blog. I just took a big look at the whole picture and started writing from that point of view from my eyes at about 13 years old. So that's a life of death and redemption. I knew what was going on. I knew that the whole thing couldn't be blamed on any one person, really. It was just a dysfunctional, abusive, bad situation that was just wrong. It was just all wrong. And but I knew it wasn't just one person's fault in my family. I knew it wasn't just my mother's fault, or just my dad's fault, or just my grandparents' fault, or on both sides. They were very strange and sick individuals, all of them. And I thought, it's everybody's culmination. Everybody had some input into this, as far as the family unit went, and we all didn't help things at all. But we didn't have any way else to do it, because we were all so dysfunctional and so screwed up that there was no way to fix it. It was just too far gone. By the time I was born, it was way too far gone. It was way too far gone before I was born. So by the time I came around, it was gone, and there was no family life. There was no hope for a family, or for a family pulling together and trying to make it work. It was not going to happen. And so it was good to take a look at the whole picture and see, the different parts of it. The what happened to my mother, and why she did what she did, why my dad did what he did, and why my siblings then did what they did, and why I did what I did. And it really made me take a hard, honest look at the situation. And it was very helpful for me to do that, put things in perspective and put things in place, and allow some sort of looking at it as a third party, instead of looking at it as I had been looking at it, always as a victim in that abuse. It allowed me to step outside of that and look at it as a third party would, a third party person looking in, and it gave me a different focus and a different perspective, that's for sure. And I started doing, in those shows, One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, I started looking at a lot at John Bradshaw's work, mainly Healing the Shame That Binds You by John Bradshaw, and also Homecoming, Reclaiming and Healing Your Inner Child. And those are those two books from John Bradshaw that I picked up and started reading through and started working through some of the stuff. And I found them very helpful. I needed to learn what happened to me. I needed to know and understand what happened to me psychologically and emotionally during all the years of the abuse and the years of the aftermath of it. And I needed to find out why I was doing what I was doing and why I was behaving the way that I was behaving, and why as an adult I was still having so many issues in my life and so many problems with my own view of myself as well as view of life, right? I found these books very, very helpful. Both of John Bradshaw's books, these two. I haven't read anything else from him, but just these two, Healing the Shame That Binds You and Homecoming. Those are some really valuable books to me, and they really made a big difference in the way that I was able to see, wow, look, this is a good example of why I'm doing what I'm doing and why I have done what I've done in the past, and which was a lot of destructive stuff on top of being abused. Not only abused, but then I was doing my own self-destructive stuff later, self-sabotaging in many different ways, not just self-sabotaging as in, for instance, cutting or anything like that. It was mainly quitting jobs, leaving the country, moving thousands of miles away, trying to think that I could escape myself and my life and my past, right? Thinking that I could leave the baggage behind, and not realizing that baggage was going to follow me until I did something with it, unpacked it and looked at it and took it out and dealt with it, right? Another book that I found really helpful was Codependence, The Dance of Wounded Souls, a cosmic perspective of codependence and the human condition. And this is Robert Burney, B-U-R-N-E-Y, Robert Burney. This was a really good book, and it's a small book, and it's not a very big book, and I read it, and I'm telling you, it really made a lot of sense to me. I liked what he had to say. I don't agree with everything that John Bradshaw says or Robert Burney says, just because they wrote it, but a lot of it made very good sense and set some things straight for me as far as why what happened to me. Like I knew what happened to me, but I didn't know the terminology behind it. For instance, like I would hear people would say, "Oh, your family or your mother was codependent," but I didn't know what they were talking about. And I even saw definitions of codependency, and it didn't make any sense. But in these books, it really explains a lot about codependency and codependency behavior. And so I was able to look at that and say, wow, what am I doing that's codependent? Do I still do things that are codependent? Probably, because it was ingrained in me. That's my, so much toxic stuff was ingrained in me, because how can you help it? How can you escape it? Growing up in a lot of toxic, dysfunctional garbage, you're just going to pick it up and learn it, right? It's second nature to me. It's like a second language to a child who speaks one language at school and then one language at home. They learn them usually both very well when they're little. And that's kind of the way it is with this stuff, right? I mean, I learned all of these behaviors as a very young child and then don't even recognize them, right? Because they're just part of my life, part of my makeup. And so I'm still doing things. I'm absolutely positive that are self-sabotaging or codependent. And it's hard for me to recognize it. And it's hard for me to recognize it in other people, too, because I grew up with people who were sick, very, very sick, mentally ill people, psychologically ill, just screwed up, So I have a hard time recognizing this kind of stuff in other people. So, it's a hard road in that respect, right? I still have a lot of work to do as far as that goes. Just to watch out for that kind of stuff and not allow my decisions to be made by and because of that type of stuff, because it's very damaging. It can be. So I have to be really careful before I make decisions. And now I'm a Christian, so I pray very carefully. I pray when I have to make a decision, I really think about it. And even though it may seem a little bit bizarre to somebody else. It's usually something that I've thought through very well and taken the time to think about and maybe thought about for months, even 6 months, maybe even a year before I go and do something, especially drastic stuff, right? And so it is important to stop and think before we act and make sure we're not reacting out of something that's from so long ago, just old ways of reacting and old ways of behaving. I have to be really careful with that. When I'm around people who are semi-high-strung, then I tend to be high-strung because I'm on the alert. Right? My mother was high-strung, and I never knew what it was going to be like around her. Like she was time bomb waiting to go off all the time. So it was a dangerous place to be around her most of the time. So, you know, my moods and my emotions and my whole entire reactions would be all geared to my mother while I was growing up. And so if she was upset, then I'd be upset. You know, if she was peaceful, then I was peaceful. If she was mad, I was mad. Right? Because I had to be on her good side, see. I had to take my mother's side or I'd be in big trouble. So, yeah, I took my mother's side for sure. And it was a smart thing to do. And so, you know, but in the meantime, it did train me to be sort of hyper vigilant about that kind of stuff, even in the work world or in my personal life. And so I have to be careful not to do that. Just be my own person and make my own decisions. I'm getting much better at it now that I'm getting older, you know. But I know when I was younger, I was still very much the same way. And you know, it's hard. It's definitely hard to deal with for sure. But I noticed on the Healing the Shame That Binds You, this was very good because I needed to learn what shame was. I didn't even understand shame until I read this book, to be honest with you, because I didn't think I had done anything wrong as a child, right, to deserve the treatment that I got. So I didn't think I had any shame, you know, because I was like, well, how can I have shame? Because shame to me is like, shame on you, you've done something wrong, right? That's like shame on you, bad, or whatever, right? So I always thought that shame was something that had something to do with somebody who did something wrong. And I didn't do anything wrong as a child. I was just born, right? I was born, and my mother didn't like the fact that I was born. She literally told me to my face she wished that I hadn't been born, and that she wished I had died with the other two babies that were stillborn before me, and that, you know, she hated my guts, and she hated my dad, and I was a rape child. My dad forced himself on her, and she wasn't supposed to have any more children anyway. And so she wasn't happy that I came around, right? And so she made it very clear at the very beginning that I was not wanted, and that I was just a rape child, and that I was really going to be the bane of her existence for the rest of her days. So she made me pay for it. And so I didn't think I had done anything wrong, you know, by coming into the world. And my behavior was bad, I have to admit. You know, I mean, I grew up in a home where it didn't matter whether you were good or bad, you got beaten anyway. And so it didn't matter if I did anything good or bad, I'd just be beaten for whatever reason. It's a good day to beat on one of the kids, right? So you make too much noise, this kind of stuff. Come in the house and let the door slam or something. That's a cause for a beating in my house, right? So I didn't have to really be doing anything bad, right? So my behavior was just what it was. And I had witnessed so much bad behavior in my home that my behavior was modeled after my parents as well, who were abusive to each other and to the children, and also my siblings' behavior, which was really bad. So my behavior was not good. And so I've done some bad things as a child and as an adult, you know. And I think the shame, I was trying to figure out where shame came from. And I was like, why would I feel shame? And why would I need to work on shame, you know? But until I read this Healing the Shame That Binds You by John Bradshaw, I didn't even understand it. And when I read it, I was like, oh, wow, okay. This is really interesting. This definitely points out the fact that I do feel shame. And that it's not even my shame. It never was my shame, but I was made to carry it, made to wear it, made to live in it. And I started to realize, like, wow, I don't have to have that shame. That shame does not belong to me. And some people say you have to own it. I mean, I've heard other people, I've read lots of material. Can't even remember where I saw that. But, I mean, I've seen lots and lots of material out there that says, oh, no, you have to own everything and you have to wear everything. But I was like, no, you know what, I refuse that because I was raped as a child, as an 8-year-old, and was sibling incest. And my brother was 21, so he was 13 years older than me. And I did nothing to ask for that. Absolutely nothing to ask for that. And that shame does not belong to me. I will not own it. I will not wear it. I will not even pick it up. I won't even look at it. And the reason being is that it's not mine. That was his shame. Shame on him. And not shame on me. I had nothing to do with that. And so I realized, once I can speak freely about this stuff, this was not my shame. This was nothing to do with anything that I did that was bad or wrong. This was a forced, violent rape. It wasn't a game. I had nothing to be ashamed of. And today, at almost 48 years old, I can say I have absolutely nothing to be ashamed of there. That was not my idea, and it wasn't my doing. It wasn't anything that I brought on. No child ever brings that on. Never. As an adult, it is the adult's responsibility to not hurt a child, right? And so, I know where the blame goes. I know where to lay that blame, and I know where to lay that shame, and that is on my brother. And so it's the same with my parents, with their abuse and garbage. That shame just doesn't belong to me, and I refuse to even think that it could. So maybe that's why I may have a bit of an advantage on my healing journey than other people, because for whatever reason it is, I was able to keep track of whose fault it was and who was really the issue and who was the problem. And I think that was my way of staying sane in that household of hell, in that hell household, I guess, whatever you want to call it, because that was the only way I could keep track of what was right and what was wrong, because there wasn't a whole lot of right going on. And I thought, man, I need to be keeping track here because this is insane. My dad was threatening to kill us quite often at night. Not every night, but quite often. And, we're talking like weekly, not monthly or maybe every 6 months. My dad was threatening to kill us at least on a weekly basis. Right? So about once out of every 7 days, we'd have to worry when we went to bed because we'd be like, oh, Jesus, is he going to kill us in the middle of the night tonight? Or is it going to be next week? Or maybe the week after? I mean, it was insane, and then worried about my mother, worried about my dad killing my mother or something, or my mom killing my dad. Like, both of them wanted to kill each other. And it was like, I'd go to school and I'd be like, oh, God, somebody's going to end up killing somebody. My dad's going to kill my mother. Mainly that's what I thought. And my dad was just so bent on abusing my mother for so many years. And I thought, or one of these days she's just going to get so furious she's going to kill him, and it's just going to be a mess. This kind of stuff my sister and I especially had to go to school with because my brothers all dropped out of school and were in prison or jail or just high somewhere doing drugs somewhere. So they weren't in school. They were just doing their thing, right? But me and my sister, who was 5 years older, were still in school, and we were still having to deal with this stuff. And, it was just like insane. So I had to keep track. I was like, wow, I got to start keeping track here so I can keep my sanity, because it was hard to do in that situation. So one of my brothers was murdered, and I thought my dad did it. I was absolutely positive it was my dad for a while, because my dad and my brother hated each other. They did not get along at all because my brother was always trying to protect my mother and my other brothers, his siblings. And so to me, it just seemed like my dad did it. I was like, and then I thought, no, maybe he didn't do it. Maybe somebody else, one of my brother's friends or something, who was 19 years old. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to find that guy and I'm going to kill him. And I was like 8 years old, like 7 years old, 8 years old. And I was planning on killing this person who killed my brother. And I was like, I'm going to kill him. If I ever meet him as an adult or 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, I don't care. I'm going to kill him. And that was my attitude, that's not a good way to grow up. It really isn't. But that shame's not mine because I didn't do anything wrong. I was just trying to survive. And so, maybe I don't know if that's probably one of the reasons why I was able to keep my sanity, was just the fact that there's certain things that I knew were wrong and certain things that I knew were not mine to bear, not my responsibility, and that there was other people that were seriously responsible for it, and I knew who they were. And I would tell them to their face, too, because I was just getting beaten up anyway. And I was like, I didn't care. I would just tell my dad, I'd be like, you this and you that, and you did this. And I didn't care if he beat me up. And the same with my mom. I was like, you know what? You are responsible for this. You're supposed to be looking after us. You're supposed to be looking after me. You're supposed to be doing this and this and this. You're supposed to be, helping me out and doing good things for me as a mother. And my mother would beat the shit out of me. And I'd be like, I don't care. You owe me this. You're my parent. And I didn't care. I was like, I'm going to tell you people exactly what I think. And, it got me in a lot of trouble. But now, as you can tell, I still do the same thing on Blog Talk Radio. Talking truth and telling people what they need to hear. Because this is reality for so many people. This is reality for so many children. And yet the world wants to just close a blind eye because it's too ugly. Nobody wants to think about it. Nobody wants to face it. And then other survivors don't want to face it. Hey, I didn't want to face it. I went through to the age of 42 trying to run from it. And I couldn't run fast enough and far enough, Like I physically couldn't run after the age of 18 because I was in a car accident and completely busted my ankle and completely trashed. My ankle was just hanging off my foot, really flopping around, right? And so I couldn't run after that. And, that's probably a good thing. I'd have probably just started running and just ran across the earth and died. And then, I had always fast cars. I just drive off the face of the earth, I was always trying to get away and drive as fast as I could and do everything as fast as I could. I did large amounts of drugs over a period of 12 years from the age of 12 to 20, 12 to 21, 22. So maybe not quite 12 years, but 9 years. And, I wouldn't just do a little bit of drugs. I would do a lot of drugs. And, that's how I lived my life, to the extreme. Because I was in extreme pain and I needed something extreme to get me out of it. And then I realized I wanted to live after my brother committed suicide, the one that sexually abused me. And I thought, I don't want to die in a drug overdose or kill myself. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this life. I'm going to do it. And so I got off the drugs at the age of 21 and started working on my life. But I didn't do any healing work until I hit 42 because I hit rock bottom again. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't doing drugs. I was just still wanting to run from my past. It was just so painful and so incredibly hard to deal with on a daily basis of looking at myself in the mirror, knowing what had happened, and not able to let it out, not able to get it out, not able to get some help. I really didn't know, that I should get help. And so that's why I say to everybody on my shows, do not ever give up. Not ever. It's not okay. It's not acceptable. And people would say, yes, it is, but no, it's not. No, 2 of my brothers killed themselves. My parents won this fight. My parents won. Yep. I really blame my parents for my 2 brothers' deaths. Even though my brothers were adults, they chose to kill themselves. I blame my parents because my parents taught them how to kill themselves. And my brothers didn't have the sense to get some help. They couldn't find it. Whatever it was inside them, they couldn't find it. And you know what? So if you're listening and you're having a hard time coping and you're thinking, man, I don't know, I just can't do this. It's just too painful. You have to do this, and you have to get help. And you have to find a phone number of a crisis center. You find a friend. You find a stranger. You find somebody, and you tell them, I need help. You do not allow yourself to go down like that. No, it's not an option. It's not okay. Because you matter and you do count. Your life is worth something. You do matter. And you have to start mattering to yourself. And you have to You have to start remembering that you do matter, and you have a right to this life, and you have a right to get help. So you make sure you do get some help if you're listening and you're having a hard time, right? God bless you all. We'll talk to you soon. I'll be back on. I really hope I'll be back on this week. I'm going to try to schedule a few extra shows because I quit my job and I'm going into ministry and I'm going into human services. I want to get into start working with people, with survivors and whatnot. And I've got a counseling diploma, but I need certification. So I'm going to be working on that. And you know what? You just hang in there. If you can contact me, get a hold of me here on Facebook. You can contact me on my Blog Talk Radio program website here. Hey, get a hold of me if you need something, and you make sure that you reach out and you never give up. No, it's not an option. No, you remember that. It's not an option. You have to keep going. I know it hurts, and I know it's painful, but you have to keep going, right? We'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.